Hey everyone, I'm literally on top of Old Smoky today. This is the Cape Smoky Trail on Cape Breton Island, and I wanted to answer a question I got last night via Twitter. They asked, how do leaders deal with stress effectively? And when I think of the people I know who have a really powerful culture of leadership in their personal lives, I found there are three things that are true about the way they think about stress and the way they deal with stress. And the first one's this: they don't feel guilty about having it. Stress is a physiological response that every human being experiences. When you allow yourself to feel guilty about that, or like there's something wrong with you, or because you're weak for having it, what you do is you just compound the feeling and you end up becoming less effective. The best leaders I know don't feel guilty about stress. They accept it as an inevitable part of life. The second piece is they recognize that the best thing to do isn't to deal with stress, it's to deal with the stressors that lead to it. If possible, you can head it off ahead of time. There's two ways of doing that. One, you eliminate stressors from your life wherever possible. That's not possible of all of them, but it's important to take a look at your life and say, look, if I'm stressed, what are the things that are leading to that? And which of these are in my life because I'm not choosing to eliminate them somehow? I did a TEDx talk called The Power of Disconnection that talks about how important that is and gives some strategies on how to actually do it. The second piece is, do you have enough counterbalances for the stressors in your life that you cannot eliminate? The fact is, there are things in our lives that stress us out that we can't get rid of. That's just a reality. The question is, are we working hard enough to effectively put counterbalances to those stressors into our lives? Not just when we feel stress, but on a daily basis, are we putting in these counterbalances so we end up not feeling it at all in the first place? Now, for me, that means doing things like this. I walk 2 hours a day. I've mentioned that before. You don't have to go far, you just have to go somewhere. I think physical activity is really important. Even if it's just half an hour walking somewhere, it can allow you to get away from the things that are stressing you. Watch the television show that you like, eat the cheesecake, make sure you make time in your life for the people who make you smile. I think one of the reasons we don't is we think the time that we're using up to add these counterbalances, in that time, the stress is just going to build, and when we come back, it's going to be even bigger. What actually happens with these counterbalances is that the stress can actually dissipate a little bit. So the first one is, don't feel guilty about it being stressed out. The second is, recognize that it's not stress you want to deal with, it's stressors. And the third thing that people with really strong personal cultures of leadership do is they put their faith in this statistic. You are 100% effective at dealing with the problems in your life so far. Every problem you've ever had, you've dealt with it. You know how I know? Because you're here, you're watching this. Ultimately, we are batting 1,000 when it comes to dealing with our problems. We've gotten through every single one of them. We may not be happy with how we got through them. We may feel like we've left a piece of us behind, but you've dealt with every problem that you've ever faced. And I think that the best leaders I know recognize that fact, and they take strength from that fact. Ultimately, one of the things that great leaders do is they recognize that all the things that have brought them closest to breaking are the things that now keep them from breaking. It's not stress that really is the problem. It's this nagging voice in our head that says you will not be able to deal with this stress. But there's actually no evidence of that being the case. You've managed to make it through every time. Remember that. I think that part of the problem is this phrase, this everything happens for a reason. I don't think everything happens for a reason. There's no reason for anything. There are reasons for everything. And I like the sentiment behind that phrase, there's a reason for everything, because ultimately what it means is that even in the things that cause pain or loss or darkness, you can find light afterwards. And I think that phrase reflects that. Ultimately, though, when you say there's a reason for everything, it tends to give the power over coming through those dark times to something else, to the universe, to a higher power. And ultimately it fails to give you the respect that you deserve. Yeah, there's a reason that you got through it and something good came out at the end. You were strong, you were patient, and you persevered. And we should give ourselves credit for all the strength, all the patience, and all the perseverance we've had in our life. But when you say everything happens for a reason, you're giving up the right to feel that strength and that power and that pride in the fact that you got through it. And I don't think that that's incongruent or incompatible with the idea that there is a higher power. Ultimately, though, I think that whatever higher power is out there isn't there to solve our problems. It's there to give us the strength and the skills and the perspective to do it ourselves. And so I think one of the things that's really important when it comes to dealing with stress is to recognize that the cracks that you've had before don't mean that you're inevitably going to break. We treat ourselves sometimes in our minds as if we're glass. That means as soon as there's a crack, shattering is inevitable. We're not glass, we're muscle, which means that when we're broken down, we actually build back stronger. The best leaders I know don't look at it and say, oh, there's a reason for everything. They recognize that one of the reasons that bad things have become good is because they were strong, they were patient, and they persevered. And they did it before, and they can do it again. You've done it before, and you can do it again. Those three things. Do not feel guilty for being stressed out. Every human does it. When you feel guilty about it or feel weak, you just make it worse. 2, don't deal with the stress if you can deal with the stressors. 1, by eliminating ones that are in your life and that you're simply not taking actions to eliminate. And 2, by actively creating daily counterbalances for the stressors that do exist. And 3, remember, you have dealt with everything that you face so far. There is absolutely no evidence that you will not deal with the stress you face now. I think the best leaders I know make those 3 things true when it comes to thinking about stress. Thanks, guys.